Good morning, everybody. Today, our class is going to be on my system for cutting long hair. Now, what we want to achieve is we want to achieve putting layers into the hair so that it gives the client volume but leaving the length. Okay, so I have a system, it's called the Radiate, and once I get into the sections you'll understand why it's actually called that. I think the hardest thing about cutting long hair, well, there's two things that I think that are hard about cutting long hair. One is figuring out the actual length that we need to cut the hair to for the client's texture of hair. And the other one is to try and not get lost when we're actually doing the haircut. So this particular system addresses those 2 points. So the first thing that I would like to do is go through the consultation, show you the haircut before I start to cut it so that we can see the length that it is right now, okay? And then talk about the areas that are going to determine for me the length that I'm actually going to cut the hair. So right now let's go over and meet Michiko, who is our model for today. And Michiko has fairly fine hair, and it's really quite flat here on the top. So what we want to do is we want to leave the length where it is, and in the front I want to blend the front in so that we get a really nice line here, all right? And then with the length that we're going to cut the hair to, there's actually 2 points in the head that are actually going to determine for me the length that I'm going to cut the hair to, and that's going to be the crown and the occipital bone right here. When I decide the length that I'm going to cut the hair to, I'm going to use both of those 2 points to determine for me the actual length. What that does is it gets me away from having to ask the client how short would she like the hair, especially when it comes to layering. Because what happens when I'm cutting long hair and I'm not sure about the length that I need to cut the hair to, you know, I'll invariably lift the hair up and then ask the client if this is too long, or this is too short, or this is too short. And what happens is that the client will naturally probably give me the longest area to cut, which is not going to give me the volume that I want in through here. By using the crown and the occipital bone, what I have to do as a stylist is I have to mention to the client that what I'd like to do is I'd like to give her more volume on the top, but leave the hair long. So when I'm explaining to the client exactly what I want to do during the consultation, one of the words that I don't use is the word short, because, you know, short is kind of like death. It sort of boxes me into a corner, because the minute I say the word short, then the client's going to ask me how short, and then I'm going to have to show the client. So the idea behind the consultation is to paint a picture. So I want to put more volume on the top, leave the length the way that it is, okay, because she likes the length that it is, and then put a long fringe. So in the front, okay, I want to go from like about the nose, blend that in, and the idea behind that is so that when I finished and I comb the hair from side to side, it'll have a sweeping fringe across the front, all right? So that is the extent of my consultation. So the idea, again, is to paint a picture for the client, not talk about the length that I'm going to be cutting the hair to. 9 times out of 10, especially when I do long hair, clients like to have more of a soft volume than something that's like punky and sticking up. So when I'm explaining what I want to do, I always use the term soft as opposed to that word short. So what we'll do now is we will shampoo, and then I'm going to section the hair off into the sections that I'm going to use to cut the hair, and then we'll discuss the points in the head that I'm going to use to determine the actual length that I'm going to cut the top to. Okay?